She's the program coordinator with the coalition, and she works with our young people in our youth action groups as well. I'm Celeste Clark. I'm the director of the Raymond Coalition for Youth, and I'm very grateful to have all of you on the call today for an important topic with our guest, DEA Special Agent DeLena, to go over some housekeeping. As I mentioned, the call is being recorded. If anybody has any questions throughout the presentation that John is giving, if you can use the chat box to please send them directly to me, and I will be asking John the questions that come in. Also, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat box, we have a lot of people on the call, and one of the things that we like to focus on with the coalition is it's a great opportunity to network and meet other people who are doing the important work that we're all doing together. So if you put your name, organization, and if you would like to share your contact information, that would be great and appreciated. Some of you might have seen in the news, somebody had asked prior to the meeting started, we had a major fire in our community in Raymond, New Hampshire, and it left 18 apartments homeless. So there are a lot of people in need in the community, and the community's really rallied together with donations of gift cards, money, and supplies. Right now, the town is asking that if anybody wants to donate, to please hold on to your actual physical items. If you want to take pictures of them and send them to our recreation director, Michelle Weaver at the town, we can put her email address in the box, in the chat box also. There, if you have like a microwave or a couch or something you want to donate, once people actually get into apartments, they're going to be looking at the supply list of what's available to help match them up with needs. And of course, cash donations can be directed to the town also, if anyone is interested in doing that, and it's all greatly appreciated. With that, we'll get started with the meeting. I know we have a lot of new people on the call, so I just wanted to share briefly about what the coalition is, how we got started. It'll be super quick because the star of the show is John, and we want to hand it over to him. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So the Raymond Coalition for Youth got started back in 2002 in response to the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, showing that Raymond actually had reported youth drug use, being alcohol, marijuana, tobacco, and other drugs, higher than the state average. So we assembled all of the people in town who could potentially help with this, which actually is the whole entire community, our youth members, healthcare, law enforcement, the schools, parents. We all came together and we examined that data to see how we could make an impact on it, how we could lower it and make the community a better place for our young people to live in. With the idea that prevention, it sounds very difficult, but it's actually pretty simple. If we increase awareness to the dangers and risks associated with the drug and we decrease access to it, automatically we can decrease use. It sounds so simple, but we all know it's quite a challenge. So when John came to me and said that he wanted to talk about meth, I think he brought this up to us about a year ago, and we really didn't think there was a direct need for that in our community at the time. We were focusing on, we're still in the opioid crisis, which we're still in, and underage drinking and marijuana use were really at the top of our list. John came back to me a month or two ago and said, we really need to start having this conversation. So I said, okay, we'll schedule you. We got him scheduled for the meeting today. And then people were asking us why we were addressing methamphetamine use, especially if we're a youth coalition. So going back to our roots of looking at data and how we determine if we have something that we should be paying attention to, I went to NASDA, the National Survey of Drug Use and Health, and I started pulling some information. And I also was on a call, it was National Prevention Day, the first Monday of the month, February 1st, and they were talking a lot about methamphetamine use across the United States. So we pulled up this map that a gentleman had used, and if you see New Hampshire, if it's 12 and older, so that's for all age groups, we're the light blue. So the grid at the bottom of the screen shows you the amount of use and the color shaded. The dark blue is obviously the least amount. And then if you get to the orange color, that's the states that are reporting the highest amount of use. Now this is 12 years old and older, so pretty much the whole population. And we're at the bottom of the list, second to the bottom. If we go to 26 and older, we go down to the bottom of the list for the least amount of use, if you will, for that age group. And then 18 to 25, New Hampshire goes into the white. Our use is increasing as the age is going down. Hopefully that makes sense to people. We go to 12 to 17-year-old, and we're in the higher, just below the highest states in the United States for 12 to 17-year-olds for use of methamphetamines. That's a pretty startling statistic to look at, and exactly why we have John with us today. So then I looked at our youth risk behavior survey. The top one is, again, the NASDA, the national rates for lifetime for 2018 and 2019. And you can see it's at 0.3%. If we pull the youth risk behavior survey that we've been collecting here in Raymond and in the state of New Hampshire, and we do it every 2 years. So in 2017, it was 2.6 in Raymond and 1.8 in the state of New Hampshire, which is substantially higher than the national rate. And then if you go to 2019, in Raymond, it was 1.4, and in the state of New Hampshire, 1.7. So this definitely shows us that it's something that we need to be concerned with our young people. These numbers are not high, obviously, compared to underage drinking and marijuana use. But when we're talking about a drug like methamphetamine, it's very serious. So we need to be at least aware of it and starting the conversations. And it really goes back to prevention, like I had mentioned. And if we take the conversation back to 2004, 2005, when as prevention people, we knew that prescription drugs was something that we needed to be concerned about it, and we needed to start having conversations. I hate to say nobody wanted to listen, but it certainly wasn't the conversation that everybody was having, as loud as we were screaming that we needed to pay attention to this. And then we ended up with a huge opioid crisis, and many people lost their lives. So this is exactly what we're trying to prevent. And it's exactly why we have John with us today. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to give the floor over to John DeLena. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So I appreciate the opening, Celeste, and I do appreciate the opportunity to get on here today. And this really was me reaching out to Celeste, asking for help. This is something that I am right now gravely concerned with. And while Celeste just shared stats, that show 2018 and 2019 statistics, what I want to talk about is what I know is happening today. This is very fluid. It's moving very quickly throughout the United States, throughout New England, and it's here right now as we sit here today in New Hampshire. And that's what has me most concerned. And these conversations we've been having now, we've had with the governor, who is very aggressively approaching, how he wants to handle this with all of our state and local counterparts. I've had conversations with both of the United States senators about this, because so many people are so concerned with what's happening here in the Granite State. And that's the best part of anything that we do is that we have so many people that are willing to log on today and learn about this, because we want to try to nip this problem in the bud as best as we can. So I'm going to try to share my screen. See if I can do this the right way. Can you see that okay, Celeste?
Yes.
So I made up some slides and I'm going to try to rip through them here. I think this speaks for itself. We have a fentanyl crisis here in New Hampshire. That's what's killing our neighbors and our friends and people that live here. But there is a massive tidal wave of methamphetamine. Please do not, think I'm trying to overstate that. But it's moving throughout the United States, and it's here right now. If you talk to people in the know, and I know we have some of our law enforcement brothers and sisters on here today, people that understand both the heroin / opioid / fentanyl epidemic and what's going on with methamphetamine will tell you this is an absolute game changer for us. This changes the way everything is going to happen if this addiction spreads out. And, I'm going to talk about the investigations and what I see happening, but it's reinforced from some of the data. in terms of the overdose death rate that we see here in New Hampshire, just happening now. If you see the reports from Kim Fallon and the medical examiner's office, there is all of a sudden this toxic combination of methamphetamine and fentanyl that's leading to the death in many of the overdoses that we see here. And those numbers are climbing exponentially, and they're climbing very rapidly. We've always had a concern for methamphetamine in New Hampshire, but what we have had is homemade meth labs, clandestine meth labs, where people are using over-the-counter or things that they can buy in almost any store, and they're producing methamphetamine. Those are very dangerous, those labs, and we've talked about them before, and I think I've spoken to this audience several times about it. Usually, our police and fire and first responders come upon these things because there's been an explosion or a fire, and sometimes even a death, and they get there and they start seeing all these chemicals, and we get out there and find out that it's a meth lab.
Hey, I have a conflict. I'm not.
When there is that type of a
Are
lab,
you able to record it? I sent the info to Dana. He's going to jump on.
that's
Could you
okay.
please mute? Thank you.
That's okay. A lab like that produces low purity meth, and it can only produce smaller batches in smaller quantities. While we still are concerned with that, what I'm talking about today is this new Mexican cartel created using chemicals from China, and they're mass producing the highest purity crystal meth that you can imagine in laboratories in Mexico and shipping those into the United States. This is a lab that I was in, and some of you may have seen this before, but this was in the jungles of Sinaloa close to 2 years ago now. But I want to show you a little bit about what that looks like. It's a quick video. This was in the middle of a triple canopy jungle in the jungles of Sinaloa, Mexico. It was an enforcement operation between the Mexican government and DEA. And we happened to be down there with some police leaders from New England, and they took us on a tour of this lab. You see the amount of equipment that's in there. There was a generator in there the size of a semi-truck. That one lab was capable of producing and was producing 7 tons of crystal methamphetamine every 3 days. 7 tons. So when you compare it to the small homegrown labs that we saw in New England producing 5 grams, it's unbelievable the amount that it can produce. This is a couple images of what we're talking about. The meth that they're sending now, they often call it ice or shatter or glass. It really does look like exactly the names. And the purity is sometimes 99 to 100% pure. 99 to 100% pure. It's absolutely incredible strength. What they're also doing now is they're manufacturing using both fentanyl and now meth, and they're making pills. It's coming up from the West Coast. We have investigations right now where we have New Hampshire citizens who have relocated to states along the southwest border to profit off of this. They're buying pounds of methamphetamine and they're shipping it or driving it up into New Hampshire. In fact, it's easier right now to get crystal meth in New Hampshire than it is in Massachusetts. It's cheaper right now to get crystal meth in New Hampshire than it is in Massachusetts. The problem is that they're willing, these cartels, to manufacture it and put it in pill form. And they make the pills, it's almost impossible for any of us in law enforcement to tell the difference until we get it to the lab. Some of you may have seen this before. I used it a while ago from a slide, but that was from one high school where 3 high schoolers died of a fentanyl overdose, and it was in pill form. They had no idea. This is from a recent seizure here in this area. Those are Adderall pills that are made with nothing but crystal methamphetamine. If criminal organizations are manufacturing pills to look like Adderall, and they're lacing it with nothing but methamphetamine, they're specifically targeting our children. Our children is who use and abuse Adderall. You know, they're the biggest consumer of Adderall. If you have criminal organizations, if you have drug cartels in Mexico who have now decided it's profitable for them to make Adderall pills using nothing but methamphetamine, that's a problem. That's why I'm here today asking for help. We have to get that message out there, because sadly, too many people think that Adderall makes you smarter, and that's why people are abusing it. But B, a lot of people think that they're sort of safe from this crisis if they're not using something that involves a needle, and that's not the case. These cartels understand that we've done a really good job in the United States lowering the overprescribing practices and lowering the illicit diversion of actual pharmaceutical pills. But they understand that the addiction hasn't gone away. So they've just ramped up production, and they're producing millions and millions of these pills. We're seizing millions of these pills, which means if we're seizing millions of them, I can't even begin to process how many are getting through. Again, this is recent, within the last month in this area, using nothing but powder and using pill presses that they obtained illegally to make these pills. That's an image of a recent seizure of some of the fentanyl pills. They call them on the street Mexican Oxy or Dirty 30s. Again, even for law enforcement, very difficult to tell the difference when you see them, and it's oftentimes it goes to the lab. This is a little bit of an older seizure, but it goes along with what we're seeing with the rise of the crystal methamphetamine, is that people are then using drugs to sort of counteract the effects one drug from another. So a lot of people that are abusing Adderall will then take, or methamphetamine, will take a Xanax to calm down from it. So this was a seizure that we did along the Canadian-Vermont border of over 400,000 fake Xanax made, with nothing that was supposed to be in there. And it was made in a dirty lab in Canada, but they were actually all double strength, 400,000 of them coming down into this area. This was a recent, very recent local seizure of a massive pill press operation using both fentanyl and methamphetamine to manufacture pills to sell throughout our neighborhoods. These are some of the pills that we seized, made to look like a Mellencroft 30 milligram Oxy. Just last week, you may have seen a major press announcement out of New York. They indicted a case, a boat containing what you see there, 2.5 tons of crystal methamphetamine and over 100,000 fentanyl pills. Again, all illegally made. The case was indicted in New York, has a direct impact on what we see in this area all throughout New England. I see some of my police brothers and sisters on here. These are pills, and this is methamphetamine that would directly end up in our neighborhoods when we do a seizure like that. One single seizure, 2.5 tons of crystal methamphetamine coming this way. Some of the local pill presses that we've been seizing, very dirty. There's no quality control of any of this. That's why there's no guarantee how much meth or how much fentanyl ends up in any of these pills, which makes it so dangerous. This is a concern, and I speak now to our first responders, and this is a message that I've been getting out to everybody. Meth abuse is tied directly to extreme levels of violence. There's a proclivity there to weapons. When you look at some of the Midwest and the West Coast and you talk to people that have been dealing with the meth crisis for a long time, these are the things that they'll tell you. My fear is that we've done such a good job with our first responders, police, fire, and EMS, who respond to calls for service and save people's lives every day with Narcan. We're saving lives every day throughout New Hampshire. You are. But when you get that call for service, there's no indicator whether it's a meth call or a fentanyl call. And, we've already seen acts of violence here in New Hampshire when people are having a meth episode. And that's something we need to be aware of. And that's something the state right now is doing a great job of. They're putting some training together for our first responders, so they're aware of that. But it's a difficult challenge that we're all going to face. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and see if I can take it back to.
Okay. Is that it for your presentation?
Yes, and I'd like to sort of now open it up to questions and see if I can stop my share.
Do you want them to send them to me first or just?
Yeah, so yes, thank you. So, I'd like to take questions. I hope that I can answer honestly anything I can. Again, I will tell you that right now today we have some very large investigations that are going on. We're doing amazing work with all of our state and local counterparts. We're seizing methamphetamine throughout all four corners of New Hampshire, crystal methamphetamine. A lot of it is coming here. It's being driven here from the southwest border. A lot of it is being shipped in mail packages. We are seeing these pills. These are actual cases. I don't want to stand here or sit here or Zoom you and tell you about maybe things that are happening in LA or Chicago. I want to share with you things that are happening today in our neighborhoods. These are happening right here today. We have recently seized over 70 weapons on a case, a methamphetamine case here in New Hampshire from active meth users. These are things that alarm me. These Adderall pills made with nothing but crystal methamphetamine alarms me. The availability of these pills alarms me. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to taking any questions that you might have.
So the first question we have is if the PowerPoint is going to be shared. Is that something you can share with us?
Yeah, I'll figure out how to get you some of those pictures and images. I just think it's important, that if it's used somewhere, somebody is able to sort of explain what's behind it. And I know you're videoing this, and maybe that's the best way to do it, is to sort of show that and show those slides, but we can work it out. Okay.
So if John sends it along to me, I will send it out with a follow-up email with the link to the YouTube page for the video and the slides. There's a question, do you do this presentation in other regions of the state?
Yeah, I think, either me or somebody on my team, this is what we do. We want to get the message out there. We did this recently with the Manchester SUD. Am I saying that? Is that right? I think.
Good job. Yes.
I think I did that recently. We want to get the message out there. So if there's a request, let me know. And I certainly will. It's easy when it's a Zoom. It's a little more difficult to move about, but you guys let me know and I'll make it happen.
Very good. I know that the Katie Coalition up in the Plymouth area is looking to do it as well.
Yeah.
Is there a section of the state where it's worse?
I don't want to. I don't think so. As I said, we have been involved with investigations in all four corners of the state. From the northern tip, east and west, and obviously our southern big cities. We're actively involved with our police and law enforcement partners. But again, it's so important. Celeste, you showed those stats of the usage and the age. We have to have this conversation now. The children need to know, the young people need to know that it's here, number one, and what it is. So hopefully they can make a good, healthy decision. And this is what prevention's all about. I don't need to tell you, but particularly when it comes to these pills, when we have criminal cartels that are manufacturing pills, that is a business decision where they're specifically targeting our young people, and we need to be able to counteract that. And we need to use our youth leaders to help us, join up and spread this message.
The pills are what's most concerning because that's what we hear from our young people. For this, and I know this typically, In the past, there's been a stigma with who the people are who are using these drugs. And when we try to have conversations with parents that, you know, the kids who are on the top of the list, on the honor roll, who are most driven, who have so much stress, they're the ones who are typically, or sometimes, going to find these pills to help them study, to help them stay on the top of their game. And knowing what you've shared with us is very concerning.
And you know, again, you know, this information is very fluid. I put up that stat of the case out of New York from last week. You know, I think it was this week or over the weekend. You probably all saw on the news, Dr. Laura, I think she's from Good Morning America. Her son, I think 16 years old, died of a drug overdose. You know, obtaining these drugs from Snapchat. You know, these are so many fluid things that are happening with this crisis right now. You know, the point that I always try to make too is, you know, we're experiencing record overdose death in this country. I think right now we're somewhere around 220 overdose deaths a day. We're never going to reach an amount where the criminal cartels decide they're going to stop. You know, there's never going to be a number of Americans dying where they're going to say, we better back off. They're driven by greed, and that's never going to stop. You know, all we can do is continue to educate. You know, we're going to continue to work on the enforcement angle, but the biggest tent pole of all is prevention. We need to sow those seeds now and get that message out there to as many young people as we can. And I'm so passionate about that and thankful for all of you for the work that you do.
Thank you, John. Another question is about data. I know I shared some data, and I know I worked with my police department here locally to get some of our local data. But is there any other way, and I don't know if you can answer this, John, I think this is more of a prevention question. Where do we go for our data when we're looking for this? I mean, typically we go to the hospitals to find out if there's been overdoses, unless you have any other place to find data.
What I'll tell you is, you know, data is tricky. And that's why I was saying that to you offline earlier. Data is tricky because usually it's a year or two behind, number one. And when you have something as fluid as this, you know, it makes it challenging. In the SUD Zoom that I was on, and perhaps maybe we have some of those folks or similar here, two people spoke up. One was from, I think, Elliott Hospital, a medical professional who said, we're seeing a large number of intake now of people experiencing a meth episode. You know, so that to me, that's real world, you know, happening today data. We also had a treatment professional, and again, maybe there's somebody on here in that world, I'm not, who said the challenges with meth are there are no medically assisted treatment drugs to help with that. You know, these are problems that we're going to have. We've done such a great job here in New Hampshire, particularly, but in New England, but my home where I'm most proud is New Hampshire, with creating, you know, treatment opportunities, and we've really risen up the voices of our prevention folks. But now we have this new curveball coming at us, and you know, treatment, the face of treatment changes exponentially when you're talking about methamphetamine.
Very important point. Very important. Okay, I know some people have asked about resources. We have, and they're easy to obtain. We just happen to put them on our website on our rcfy.org. If you go to resources and other drugs, we have a sheet up there from the DEA on methamphetamine. If you're looking to talk about it with other people, there's some other resources on there as well. I do have a link for a training that's coming up on March 5th. It's more geared towards healthcare. I just need to grab that. I grabbed that on a call that I was on the other day that it was shared with me. And for healthcare treatment providers, again, it's on March 5th. I'm just grabbing the link right now. I'm going to put it in the chat box for you. Because we do like to make sure that we share resources as well as anything. And we're not just giving a problem out, right? We're trying to have a solution for the problem at the same time. So to provide some awareness. So that's in the chat box right now. And again, it's March 5th, I believe. How is the DEA working with doctors regarding scripts of Adderall and parents asking for scripts for their kids?
That's a good question. So DEA, we have oversight in DEA. It's through our Office of Diversion Control. And we have folks, anybody that has a DEA license to write a prescription or to fill a prescription has to have a DEA registration number. And DEA has oversight of that. We do routine inspections on all of those people, places, but also we get leads and tips all the time of people that may be overprescribing. You know, and generally it's worked as a criminal investigation. I think, you know, similar to the issue that we had with opioids, right now we need to be having an open and honest conversation about Adderall. But please understand what I was talking about earlier is illicitly manufactured Adderall. It's not really Adderall. It's somebody making a pill to look like an Adderall and using nothing but methamphetamine in it. But that's what's getting passed around. You know, you might have, you know, one young person who has a prescription who might share a pill with somebody. And then that same person that's buying that pill or getting it for free might be asking somebody else for one. And it may be, you know, coming from this other batch. And that's what the concern is.
Okay. I'm just trying to follow the question. Sorry.
All right. Thank you.
I think somebody has commented, and I think it's a pretty valid point, that the PowerPoint in and of itself may not do your presentation justice. So maybe the video with you narrating the video is the most important way to go. So maybe we'll just stick with that unless you feel otherwise after we get off the call.
Yeah, no, I definitely, that's what I was trying to say is it's best when it's framed with somebody that can, you know, sort of explain what it is. And you know, if people need, I'm available. I'll be available. Somebody will be available. We want to get this message out there.
And there's a request for your contact information. I think your show is going to go on the road if you're willing to share your contact information, or
Yeah.
I can pass it along too if you're okay with that.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay. Somebody's asking about, they've heard different opinions about violence associated with meth use. And is there any statistics available to support that or go along with that?
Yeah, I'm sure there are statistics available somewhere. I didn't, you know, have that prepared. You know, I think that it's pretty widely understood, the levels of violence that are associated with it. And that's partly what the state has been talking about lately and trying to get that training out there and some of this awareness. You know, it's usually, met with a violent episode if somebody is experiencing, you know, a severe meth episode. And that's something we just need to be aware of. Especially I'm looking directly at some of my police colleagues. You know, it's dangerous. And we need to be having that conversation throughout the state. Police, fire, EMS, the people that have been responding so well to provide Narcan and to save lives may now be met with a different type of call for service. And they just need to be prepared for that.
That's the really scary part too, I think.
Yeah.
To keep our first responders safe. Somebody is asking about the meth labs and the containers that they use, but I think the important message that you're trying to drive home with this is that it's not necessarily meth being made here. It's coming from Mexico. Is that correct? That
is correct. We still have meth labs here, but they're very small. You know, they produce a small yield and a lower quality meth. We still have it here, and they are dangerous. Those are the 2-liter bottles that we sometimes find, and they're very explosive and lead to fire. And that's why we always try to get that message out there. That's dangerous. This is the cartels saying, we're going to provide you with this product and you're going to want to use it. And I can tell you anecdotally from DEA and from a law enforcement perspective, what's interesting is that the cartels have tried before to create a market for methamphetamine in New England, and it never really caught on, but it's caught on right now. That's because we have more people using than ever before, but also they've marketed it to people that are using fentanyl in a way to say, if you need help getting up from the lows of your fentanyl episode, this will help you. And now all of a sudden we see people on that up and down roller coaster, and that's backed up twice, once by the medical examiner who says, yes, all of a sudden I'm seeing a mixture when people are unfortunately dying of a drug overdose more than ever before. But it's also backed up in the state crime lab and in DEA's lab, where we're taking in more meth exhibits than ever before. So it's here. We know it's here, and it's here today. And in 2 years, when those stats come out, Celeste, you can produce those.
Hopefully they're better because we've all done our job and done a great job of educating our communities.
I hope so.
I hope so. And that leads a very, very good segue to the next question. How are we getting this information into our schools, given the limitations of COVID? And how are people working with their school nurses, their health educators, to make sure parents and students are knowing about the dangers of this, especially where the pills play into it? And I know we've worked with you, John, when schools have been open and you've come in and done many presentations with our young people in the school setting and at events for us, which I'm very grateful for. But that is limited now. That is a challenge that we have. So I think that's why we're having this call today, to figure out how we can creatively work together to get this information into the schools, going out in newsletters, making sure parents are aware of it. The story that John just mentioned about the young person who passed away, getting pills in the mail, that is on our Facebook page. That went up this morning. We just got access to that. So trying to get that awareness out in many different ways. I feel like we have to do it in many different ways. It's not just one thing. It's the media working with us. It's school newsletters. It's our newsletter. It's really taking this information and everybody being a part of disseminating it. I think when people hear meth, just what we've interacted with our office and people saying, why are you dealing with that? Why are you talking about that? Bringing it back to these pills are why we're talking about this, because we know that kids are experimenting with pills. Our youth action students that we work with, I know one of them, John, has worked with past couple of years, and his mind is just blown away when he thinks about friends and students that he goes to school with that he knows that are using these, what they call study drugs or what have you. And his eyes were like wide open when he heard what was in these pills, or what could potentially be in these pills.
Yeah, it's Celeste, on the pills, I don't want to get tied to a percentage or a number, but what I'll tell you is that there was a time years ago, if we made a significant seizure of pills, there was a chance that they were stolen from a pharmacy, diverted from a truck. If we're seizing pills now, for the most part, they're made with nothing but fentanyl or meth. Like we're not seizing large amounts of pills on the street that are legitimate pills. Because we've done such a good job, around the country of preventing the diversion of those regular, real pills. So if there's pills on the street right now, there's a high likelihood that they are these illicitly manufactured pills made with nothing but fentanyl or meth in them.
Thank you. All right. There are so many questions. I'm trying to make sure. There's one question. Is any of this coming from Europe, or are you seeing most of it coming through Mexico?
That's a good question. The stuff that I think maybe somebody might be hearing about European stuff, a lot of that is the web, dark web, internet-based stuff that people are going on and ordering. And for us here, for the most part, it's being driven up from the southwest border. And another unique challenge we have is that, well, I told you and showed you a map where we have people that are, maybe in Nevada, Arizona, California, or Texas along the border and buying pounds of meth and moving it up this way. We have that right now, actual investigations. What I can tell you is that in the Merrimack Valley of Massachusetts, the street level drug organizations that have been providing fentanyl to New Hampshire citizens for years now are not going to let that happen. They're going to undercut, and they're trying to do it right now, and they want to drive business back to the Merrimack Valley. they don't want people finding their own source along the southwest border. So they are rapidly getting involved in the meth trade, and they're trying to undercut. And again, these are from cases today that we're working on that I can tell you that's happening.
Thank you. All right, another question. How can we as citizens and businesses best support the DEA in this?
I think it starts with a conversation like this here today. It really is just transparency, communication, dialogue, and getting the message out there. You know what's tricky about this is when I talk about stuff like this is bad news. Like, and a lot of times we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to, we don't want to bring it up in our communities that all of a sudden meth is here. Meth is ugly. Look at, when you all leave here today and you start Googling to try to figure out, what's going on with meth, you're going to find the faces of meth. You're going to see, it makes people who are 20 years old look like they're 50 years old. Their teeth rot out of their mouths. They pick and scratch at their faces until there's holes in their faces. That's what meth abuse looks like. It's ugly. In the Midwest and in the West Coast, where meth is such a huge problem, and has been for a long time, they have billboards of those people up. Nobody wants that in our communities here. And I hope and I pray that we never get there, but that's the truth of what meth is. And we just have to have this honest conversation and get the word out there as best as we can. So by being here today and allowing me to jump on this thing, and you are supporting me. What I'm asking for is your help in paying it forward and getting the message out there. Even if it's ugly, we need to let people know that this is here, especially when it comes to the dangers of these pills.
Mm-hmm. And I happen to have heard that there's going to be a story in the Sunday Union Leader that you're talking about this. That's correct?
I believe so. I did talk to somebody in the Union Leader, and I hope, I hope there's a great informative story about it. I applaud them for reaching out. There's been a lot of messaging that we've been trying to do with this.
Very good. Okay, I think I got them all. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of them in here, so. If nobody has any other questions, I think this is the first step, and somebody's asking if they were applying for a grant to address this, could they count on you for a letter of support?
Whatever I can do legally, I'll do. I've been writing more letters of recommendation, college recommendations. You'd be surprised at what I've been asked to do lately, and I'll do it all, whatever I can do to help.
Very good. And I guess that's a good point, that the different forms of funding, there's several people that I work with for grants in the state. Many of us right now don't have funding sources. So we're basically doing this. I know our coalition right now doesn't have a federal grant or any state funding. So it's really relies on the community support and the community who supports the coalition efforts like this working together. So we're grateful for everybody who's part of our coalition.
The great news though, Celeste, is that, like I said, the governor and our senators and our representatives are aware of that. We've had this conversation. We've worked so hard to get funding towards the opioid epidemic, and it takes so long to get all those steps into place that all of a sudden we want to be able to shift some of those dollars, towards a new crisis like meth. We need their help to get that done. Two other things I'll leave you with. One is that we've recently learned that, and Senator Shaheen was a big supporter of this. DEA got funding from the federal government. We're going to be building a new lab, and it's going to be here in New Hampshire. It's a huge step for us for the future. And also, I have DEA here in New Hampshire. We've recently hired Brian O'Keefe, who's retiring from the Manchester Police Department. And DEA is really sort of committing towards our prevention efforts moving forward. And Brian's going to be part of the team here. He'll be coming on board shortly. And we're really going to try to connect with as many people as we can to continue to keep this thing as seamless as possible.
There's one more question, and I don't know if you can answer it or not, but I will ask you because I think it's a good question. Some schools allow, with parents' permission, for children to bring in their own medication and self-administer the pills. And is this something that we should be looking at from a policy standpoint to address this with the increase of look-alike pills?
You know, that's a great question. It's a school-based question that I'd have to, policy related to schools and cities. Our local police departments probably would be more engaged with that. What I would say is, here we are having this conversation about the pills, and this is why it's so important to get that message out there, that there is availability here locally of these fake pills, and everybody needs to be made aware of it.
Thank you. One more question. Is the DEA still involved in the 360 program here in New Hampshire? Is that still happening?
Yeah, it's a great question. While it's never really gone away, DEA has now sort of changed the umbrella of 360, and we have a new name that we're going to be announcing soon called Operation Engage. A little sneak peek here. And Operation Engage has allowed us, where 360 was geared only towards opioids, now we can open it up to other drugs and other issues as well. I had the opportunity to pick one location in all of New England to put Operation Engage, and I chose New Hampshire. That is how we hired Brian O'Keefe, and he will be coming on board to be my community outreach specialist moving forward for Operation Engage. And I think we'll continue to do some of the amazing things that we did with 360. I've got a lot of ideas. Obviously, COVID has hampered a lot of them. But we're trying to push forward as quickly as we can.
Very good. You're very good at getting these questions fired at you too. So thank you for hanging in there.
Anybody else?
Yep.
Any other questions? Home improvement questions, television, the 80s, sports. Those are my areas of specialty, especially during COVID.
I do have another one for Meth though. In your opinion, if there is no change, are you concerned about meth overtaking opioids for use?
I think that it's very clear that the cartels at the highest level have decided that meth is a very profitable product for them. And instead of possibly leading to immediate death of the consumer, it leads to long-term addiction, in which, makes more money for them. I wouldn't be on here today if I wasn't gravely concerned about the availability and dangers of methamphetamine in New Hampshire.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think that's it. I would just like to point out that Raymond School District does not have a policy for students to self-administer, but that's a good question to raise. We have a lot of different communities on our call this morning, so it's something to look at in different communities if your coalition or your organization is situated someplace else. Yeah. And I'm guessing you're going to have more details on Operation Engage coming forward once Brian is on the team.
Absolutely. We'll be reaching out to a lot of our pre-existing relations that we already have. And we'll probably end up doing some sort of a press conference on it to announce it. And, we want it to be as helpful as possible, as 360 was. So more to come on that.
Very good. And we should put a plug in for the next DEA medication take back event, which is on April 24th, I believe.
Sure.
Does that sound right?
Sounds right.
The last Saturday in April. There you go. How about that? And yeah, again, go ahead.
I was just going to say, obviously, it's a challenge with COVID. I think, some of the evidence that we've seen of some of the overdose and some of the mental health issues that have arisen related to COVID, all the more reason why we probably need to figure out how to come up with a solution to get these medications safely disposed of and out of harm's way. So I look forward to working with everybody on that.
Thank you. I know we work with the police department here in Raymond, and we are planning on having it either at the police department or out in the community. After COVID in the fall, when you had it, we were at one of our local drugstores, and the people who came were grateful for the opportunity, as they always are. So thank you for allowing us to participate in a community event of awareness. That's very helpful for us.
Yeah.
And again, you have lots of thanks in the chat box from everybody who's on the call, appreciating the message. And we'll do some more to get this information out.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I hope everyone's doing well, staying safe and healthy. And you can always get to me through Celeste. If there's something we can do in your community, I'll be happy to do that. Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so much, everyone. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, I know on the call that I was on with the prevention, the National Prevention Day a few weeks ago, somebody from the Midwest was given the presentation. They were talking about the correlation between marijuana use and methamphetamine use, and how they're seeing a direct connection between marijuana users and meth users, which I thought was really relevant for some of the work that we're doing here in New Hampshire, especially with our coalition. It leads directly into the next thing on our agenda. Our youth action groups are working on marijuana awareness, and we have partnered with some of our other coalitions that in the drug-free community network that I mentioned, our grant that we had. So there is some evidence that shows the two things go hand in hand. So that's part of the next thing on the agenda. But if you have something to get to, John, I don't want to hold up your morning.
To my next meeting. I thank everybody, and I hope to see you all soon in person.
Yes, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So I want to thank all of you for being here for John's presentation. As I mentioned, it will be on our YouTube page later today, and I will share that with a link to all of you as well. We are going to move on our coalition agenda, so you're welcome to definitely stay on if you want, but we understand if you have other commitments. I will, the update on the marijuana legislation here in New Hampshire, some of you might have known that there were a couple of bills. One of them was to pass legalization and recreation use in the state of New Hampshire, and that was essentially killed 2 weeks ago at the legislative level. And also a homegrown bill was in there to grow your own marijuana for medical purposes, and that also was killed. In a very proactive measure, our young people and the coalition together have put forward 2 warrant articles that will go on our town election ballot here in Raymond on March 9th. And I'm going to let Christine talk more about that.
Thank you, Celeste. I'm actually going to share my screen. I'm going to show you, we have some more, even more information on our website, but the 2 warrant articles we've been trying to do for a few years at this point. But we've had some challenges and some hurdles over the years and trying to figure out the best way to put this forward to the town. And we finally think we got it right this year. And just on Saturday at our town deliberative session, I presented on these 2 warrant articles. The first one being a citizen petition for a zoning amendment to restrict any commercial signs promoting cannabis or marijuana, drug-related paraphernalia or products. So that will be up on our ballot. The second one is warrant article 38, also a citizen petition zoning amendment to restrict the commercialization of marijuana and marijuana-based products. So I'm gonna, like I said, share my screen real quickly and bring you to our website, which you can find at www.rcfy.org. If you go down to what we do and programs, you'll see our marijuana prevention campaign. And if you click on this will bring you to more information about the warrant articles, as well as some information from the Raymond Voter Information Project here in town. They're a bias group that does pros and cons on how you would vote for different warrant articles. So there's even more information and resources that are on their website, which you'll see here in the red. You can look for more on 37 and more for 38. Celeste was just talking to you about how we were collaborating with some other drug-free community coalitions in the state for a campaign. And if you can see these slides here, that we did quite a few of them. I want to say there's probably about 20 of them, and we've got them populated throughout the next few weeks. Well, I think it's like actually 6 to 8 weeks, a couple times a week, different slides popping up. I'll open up one for you to see, but there's, like I said, quite a few up there that I'd love for you guys to check out. This particular one on why you should care. This, again, we know that it's not legal here in the state of New Hampshire as of right now. Should it ever become legal, Raymond wants to be one of those towns that gets to opt out of having marijuana or marijuana-based products or business in our community. The youth action kids really are strong about keeping Raymond rural and the look and feel of Raymond. So this is very important for them. We're working, and I'll get a little bit more into that in my youth action update, about how to get the message out a little bit more from their perspective and their point of view to their peers. But like I said, there are quite a few on here that I would love for you to check out. And what other information do I have on here? I think that was about it, unless Celeste, you had something else that you wanted me to mention?
Nope, the slides are really just a reflection of prevention really working together. We are working with several different coalitions, and these slides represent a lot of facts that people are sometimes, they're sometimes misunderstood, or information is not very clear in the community. So this particular slide that Christine has up right now, a lot of people think that when states legalize marijuana, that the whole state is in fact able to have it in their community. And this slide reflects, if you look at it, 80% of California has an opt-out rule, and an opt-out means that they don't want anything in their community. And as states move forward, as the big marijuana moves into other states to try to get it legalized or recreationalized, they're trying to change the language so that small communities don't have this option anymore because of these numbers that you're looking at here. So that's something that's really important to us to get ahead of that. That's why we have it going to our planning board. And it's just a suggestion right now. If this does pass with the voters, it would be to suggest to the Raymond selectmen that if this becomes legal, we don't necessarily want it here in our community. And we're hoping that adults come out to support the young people on March 9th. To our knowledge, we're one of the first communities that have been able to move forward with this. So we're pretty excited about it. And again, it's been a challenge, definitely a challenge. Big marijuana has a lot of money. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we don't have any funding currently. So we're really battling the big people right now who have a lot of money to try to bring this forward. So I guess that's it, unless anyone has any questions about that.
I guess I would just like to add, I know that we're looking for some adult support, some kids support. So definitely, maybe as we get closer to the day, if you're in the town of Raymond and you want to volunteer, even just a half hour or an hour, maybe holding up a sign saying, vote yes on these two amendments, that would be, on these two warrant articles, that would be very helpful. But we can talk more about that as we get a little closer to voting day.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
Moving on the agenda, we mentioned at our last meeting that we're looking at assessment, going back to where the coalition first started, and really using this time of COVID when we're not having so many interactive events, so to speak. We're going to be looking at going into the community and finding out what the community needs are, assessing what people are concerned about. Are they concerned about substance misuse or mental health or suicide risk, and really forming the path forward with the coalition. So we're going to be looking for people to do one-on-one interviews, maybe host a focus group with your network of people. If that's something that's of interest to you, we would love to talk more with you. Again, there'll be information coming on that as we move forward. And we have an update from Youth Action from Christine.
Yes, definitely. So the last time that we were all together, last month, we were in the middle of our baby supply drive, which went off very well. I was able to drop off a whole trunk load full of baby diapers, baby wipes, creams and shampoos and food, and it was a great effort. I was very proud to bring that over to New Life. I didn't get to actually meet my contact there, but they were very grateful to have received the items and thank the community. So they were very excited for that. And I'm sure as we learn more after the horrific fire that happened, there may be even a stronger need for some baby supply items. So this could be something that we may even do again. We were talking yesterday, my middle school group and I, and they were really, saddened by the news of Monday's event and thought that maybe we could do this again. And I told them that we could think about it, see what the needs are first, and then we go from there. So that's just a little side note that we've been talking about. Warrant article advertising, I'd mentioned or a little bit earlier. They're trying to figure out maybe some hashtags that they can use along with our slides for social media. They're going to look at the slides and get from a kid's perspective, let me know what their thoughts are, and then we'll put their thoughts and words onto social media straight from them. So they're looking at that currently right now, and hopefully I'll hear from them shortly. We're considering possibly doing the film fest this year. I've got some very excited kids that are really looking forward to just getting together and putting together a project. We've been meeting fairly regularly on Zoom, but we haven't been able to get together. So this could be a nice way for us to collaborate differently on creating a video. So their minds are working right now, and we're trying to figure out a theme and a topic and how we're going to do the video. So at both levels, high school and middle school, I'm very excited about that. We talk a lot about self-care and exercise. We do it every week because it's important, especially where the kids just went back to school this week in our town. They went back hybrid, where they've been remote for so many months. It was nice for them to get back together. Some of the kids that I have in Youth Action are fully virtual, so there was no difference for them. So they didn't really have any hiccups or any concerns. But some of the kids going back were a little nervous, and we're okay, but we're glad to be back in an atmosphere, and glad that we still had Zoom to connect with. And we're also collaborating with our high school student assistance counselor on a no name calling week campaign that he would like us to help him put together. That's Mr. Pantassis. So we're very excited to be that he asked us to work with him on that. And it's basically around bullying and, not using
Offensive.
Thank you, Celeste. Offensive, names of what and whatnot towards other kids and peers and students in the school. So with that, that's what we've kind of been doing. So that's it, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Still very busy, even though we have very limited access.
Yes.
Things are much different, but the kids are still really involved. So that's exciting to see that their voice is still being heard. So thank you, Christine.
No problem.
For any of you who might have had tickets to our spring gala, it has been canceled, unfortunately, but we are working on having a spring auction. More details will be coming on that very soon. We're looking forward to it. It's obviously something we've never done before, so it'll be one more adventure and one more set of skills that we're learning. So again, more information will be coming on that. And I guess that's all we have right now. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to add or any questions.
Sorry, Celeste. I was letting somebody in the waiting room.
No questions? All right. We're going to try and put together some more information that John shared, maybe some talking points. Something will be going out in email. But really, the idea of bringing John in here is to start a conversation to figure out how we can work together to get that information out into the community. I think we can all agree that it was information that is shocking, but is important that other people hear it, especially parents and young people. So again, we're going to be working on that, and we thank everybody who was part of the call today. Our next meeting is going to be on March 11th, and it will be a Zoom again, because I don't know when we're going to get back into person, even though I very much look forward to that happening. And there's a lot of legislation happening around vaping, alcohol, and marijuana, and opioids, as John had mentioned. So we're going to be following that. We can have some updates on that as well. I hope you all have a great day, and thank you for joining us.
Thank
It's
you.
great to see you.